This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. I'm here with Michael Tilley. We're up in our fabulous Northwest Arkansas offices and studios, so good to be with you face to face.
Well, it's about time you made it up here.
I'm up here all the time, so I usually talk to you back and forth through remote. Let's talk first. Big news on Tuesday morning. The state revenue report came out and showed about a $50 million below forecast for the month of March. That is not good news.
That is not good news. I mean, that is the price of the tax cut they just passed, essentially, and it's $65 million year to date. And if you remember, both the legislative leaders said if this trend continues for another month or so, they'll begin to have discussions with Governor Hutchinson and others about what they do.
I think they're going to be having some discussions
I think they're going to be
about
talking,
what they're going to do. So.
You know, a big chunk of that. Now, I haven't drilled down too far in the numbers or talked to Shell Nutt or anyone at the department. Wesley Brown, of course, is working on the story to see if it was a one-time hit. But the corporate income tax was down $40 million.
Yeah, that's 40 of that $50 million. So
right,
that
and
could
then
be a big part of
and
it.
the sales tax was at $9 million, almost the other $10 million. So those are two big hits for 1 month. And again, you know, we're just 6 months into the or 9 months, I guess, into the fiscal year. Of course,
we're coming into the home stretch.
Yeah, I know it. So it's they're as we said, they're having some discussions. You know, they were and they knew before this came out.
Yeah, there was definitely some discussion
yes.
the week before the session ended that there was going to be some potential shortfall in the month of March. I'm not sure they projected it would be this big.
Yeah,
there's still some confidence too that they will still make up some of that change between now and the end of the fiscal year. If you talk to Joe Jett, the House Revenue and Tax Committee Chairman, and the Governor's Office, still expressed some lukewarm confidence on that.
Well, where are they going to make it up? I mean,
it's got to come up in the next 90 days where corporate income taxes surpass expectations, perhaps. So.
Well, that's a big gap to fill. You know, I thought, they going into this, they were 15, 20 million behind.
About 15.
I thought maybe we would see another 15 million hit. It'd be 30 million total. The 65 million number total year to date. That for even I was being somewhat negative in my estimate. It went beyond that.
So legislative session has wrapped up. What would you maybe point to as one of the bigger surprises of the legislative session? Something that you maybe didn't expect to make as big a headlines, or maybe it didn't make as big a headlines as, or maybe you thought it would make bigger headlines and it didn't.
Well, I guess what I was surprised about, I wasn't surprised about the guns and the bathroom bill. I expected more in terms of highways and highway funding to come out. But I guess when you're cutting taxes and you have these kind of reports and no one wants to raise a diesel tax or a gas tax, I guess maybe I shouldn't have been surprised that nothing more came out on that. So
I was actually surprised that the healthcare debate was a little bit as quiet. We've had a couple of sessions in a row where we have had, the private option funding has been a big deal. Now they're going to come back in special session and deal with that.
Well, I think it's because they were waiting on Congress to do something, and everybody was just kind of paralyzed on.
But I sense from being up there and then talking to some particularly conservative and Republican legislators that to push forward on Medicaid expansion is not going to be the debate. It's going to be, do we agree with all the reforms that the governor has pushed forth through waivers?
Or how do we handle these block grants that are now going to be potentially handed down? What are our options now with that? I think that will be the discussion.
All right, last question for you. Let's shift gears and let's talk business. Let's talk about J.B. Hunt. They'll be the first transportation company to really put their earnings out there. Always seems to be. They seem to be first. What are our expectations for what to expect with J.B. Hunt and the industry as a whole?
Well, and that's a good point. Obviously, they are closely watched. J.B. Hunt is a leading indicator in that market because they're trucking, transportation, logistics, brokerage, the whole thing. And Stevens Inc., Brad Delco, who covers a lot of the trucking companies, has said that their earnings are going to be a little disappointing. But let's not feel sorry for J.B. Hunt.
Well, I was about to say, is it going to be disappointing from, it's going to be a few $1 million shorter than usual?
Really,
it's going to be a profit.
Yeah, it's a margin issue. The freight, logistics, shipping industry is still kind of struggling to get some momentum. Fuel costs are down, which helps, but it's very competitive in terms of pricing. Still a lot of capacity out in the market, so that's putting downward pressure on the margins, so that's what we're seeing. But their revenue is expected to grow 7% like 1.6, 1.7 billion in the quarter. That's good money.
Yeah, that's strong revenue growth.
But again, even though Delco has been a little negative on this quarter, he's still positive overall. For example, he has their target. He still has a buy rating on the stock. Has their target at 105, which is above the 52-week high of 102. They're trading now in the upper mid to low 90s. So he's still positive. But I think it reflects, though, that the overall trucking industry, which Arkansas has a big impact on Arkansas's economy, is just kind of like the tax numbers in Arkansas. It's just maybe not as bad as the tax numbers in Arkansas, but it's struggling to get going, get some momentum.
Yeah. All right. He's Michael Tilley. He's the executive editor of Talk Business and Politics and the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal.
That's right.
Good to be with you.
Thanks.
All right. We're back with more right after this.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us. Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
Welcome back to Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. I'm joined by Representatives Joe Jett and George McGill. All right, let's talk about this session. You guys have dealt with, thousands of bills, hundreds have been signed into law. I want to end on a good note, so I want to save the best moments of the legislative session for the second half of my questioning here. What were maybe some of the more regrettable or less desirable aspects of the legislative session? Maybe something that you wish you hadn't had to deal with this session, Joe?
I typically tend to stay in the revenue and tax budget world, and it's just all the social issues and all the other stuff that goes along with it. If I could just hunker down and stay in budget, it'd make my world be a lot easier. So,
all right. What about you, George?
I agree. The social issues tend to cause a little heartburn every now and then.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Best moment of the legislative session. What has it been for you? Best bill, best moment, best circumstance?
It's strange. SB 519. It's one of those moments where you have to say something. And
remind people what SB 519 was.
519 was the separation of Robert E. Lee Day from MLK Day. And at that moment, I sensed some tension in the chamber. And I know we're all friends and colleagues, and I sensed something about to happen that it was not us. And so I was led to say something. And again, it's the worst moment, and it turns out to be the best for me.
All right. What was your best moment this
session? My good buddy, he stole my line, because that's what I was actually going to say.
Well, he delivered the speech. He gets to take credit for it.
I'm telling you, man, I looked around the chamber when that was going on, when George went down to the well, and he delivered that. And every so often, you get to see somebody catch lightning in a bottle. And George literally caught lightning in the bottle. I was looking around the room, and I had Representative Chris Ritchie standing beside me, and I punched him. I said, look around the room. Nobody's talking. Nobody's moving. Staff is still. And George, I'm not going to say George, it was a speech, but it was more like just, and no offense, George, but it's like George is a Southern gentleman in every sense of the word. It was just like an older, wiser man had brought something that you really wanted to listen to and pay attention to. And everybody just got really hunkered down, and it was a very special moment in the chamber.
All right, I'm glad that you both agree that was the best moment of the session, because if you hadn't brought it up, I was going to tell you you're wrong, because that was the defining and best moment of the legislative session there. And they will be talking about that speech for years. George McGill, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let's hope they're not talking about your budgeting for years when this is over, Joe Jett.
I understand.
Representatives George McGill, Joe Jett, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for coming on in.
Yes,
All right. And thank you for tuning in to this week's program. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.